What would you do if you opened your car door and heard a child's terrified whisper from inside? A successful businessman was about to start his normal Wednesday morning when 3 muffled words from a hidden child would turn his entire world upside down. What he discovered in the next 60 seconds would haunt him forever. This is a true story that proves sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest warnings. The morning sun barely broke through the gray November clouds as 42-year-old businessman David Chun walked across the parking garage of his downtown office building. His polished black Mercedes sat in its usual spot, right next to the elevator on the executive level. David had owned this car for 3 years and every morning followed the same routine. Coffee in hand, briefcase in the other, remote key ready to unlock the doors. But this Wednesday morning would be different from every other morning of his life. David pressed the unlock button on his key fob. The familiar beep echoed through the concrete garage. The lights flashed once. Everything seemed normal. He reached for the driver's side door handle, his mind already racing through the day's meetings and conference calls. His company was closing a major deal worth millions of dollars, and he couldn't afford any distractions. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint, he almost missed it completely. A small voice, muffled, desperate. Please help me. David froze with his hand still on the door handle. His heart started pounding. Did he really hear that? Was someone playing a prank? He looked around the parking garage. Empty. Silent. Just rows of expensive cars and concrete pillars casting long shadows. He stood perfectly still and listened. Nothing. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe he was more stressed about this business deal than he realized. David shook his head and started to open the door again. Don't single quotes T. Start engine. There it was again, clearer this time. A child's voice, coming from inside his car. David's blood ran cold. Someone was inside his Mercedes. A child was inside his locked car. But how? Why? His hand started shaking as he slowly pulled the door handle. The heavy door swung open with its usual solid thunk. The front seats looked normal. His gym bag still sat in the passenger seat where he left it yesterday. His sunglasses in the center console. Everything exactly as he remembered. But the voice came from behind him, from the back seat. David turned slowly, his entire body tense with fear and confusion. The back seats appeared empty at first glance. The black leather gleamed under the garage's fluorescent lights. But then he saw it, a small movement near the floor. Behind the driver's seat. He leaned closer and his breath caught in his throat. A child, a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, was crammed into the small space between the front and back seats. His hands were tied with duct tape. His mouth was partially covered with more tape, though one corner had come loose, which explained how he could speak. The boy's dark eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down his dirty cheeks. "Oh my God," David whispered, his phone. He needed to call the police immediately. He reached into his jacket pocket. "No," the boy whispered urgently, shaking his head frantically. "No police, not yet. They're watching." David's hand stopped halfway to his phone. "Who's watching? What are you talking about?" The boy's eyes darted toward the parking garage entrance. "The men who took me, they're still here. They put something in your car. A bomb. If you call police now, they'll see. They'll push the button." David felt like the entire world tilted sideways. A bomb? In his car? This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare. "I heard them talking," the boy continued, his words rushing out in terrified whispers. "They said when the rich man gets in his fancy car and starts driving, boom. They said they'd be watching from across the street. They said nobody would suspect a kid was inside. They put me here last night after you left work." David's mind raced. This child had been in his car all night. Tied up, terrified, in a vehicle rigged to explode. And somewhere nearby, kidnappers were watching, waiting for him to start the engine. "Listen to me carefully," David said. forcing his voice to stay calm even though panic clawed at his chest. "What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy whispered. "Okay, Tommy. I'm going to get you out of here. But I need you to stay very quiet and very still. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded, fresh tears rolling down his face. David's hands trembled as he realized the impossible situation they were both in. One wrong move, one suspicious action, and whoever was watching might detonate the bomb early. He couldn't call the police openly. He couldn't make a scene. He had to act like everything was completely normal. But how do you act normal when a kidnapped child and a bomb are hidden in your car? David's mind worked faster than it ever had in his entire life. Every business decision, every high-pressure negotiation he'd ever faced suddenly seemed meaningless compared to this moment. A child's life depended on his next move. His own life depended on it too. He glanced at his watch. 7:45 in the morning. The parking garage was still mostly empty, but in 15 minutes, other executives would start arriving. More witnesses, more complications, more people in danger. "Tommy," David whispered, pretending to arrange something in his front seat while he spoke. "Where exactly did they put the bomb?" "Under the driver's seat," Tommy answered, his voice shaking. "I watched them through the gap. It's a black box with wires. They attached it to something under there. They kept saying it would work perfectly when you sit down and start the car." David felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool November air. A pressure-triggered device, probably connected to the ignition as well. These people weren't amateurs. They had planned this carefully. But why? Why target him? Why use an innocent child? "Tommy, do you know why they took you?" "Did they say anything about me?" The boy nodded slightly. "They said your company is ruining their plans. They said you're about to sign some big deal that will destroy everything they worked for. They want to send a message. They said when you blow up, everyone will be too scared to finish what you started, the deal." Of course, David's company was about to acquire a manufacturing plant that would shut down an illegal operation. He'd received threatening emails over the past month, but his security team dismissed them as empty threats from disgruntled workers. Apparently, those threats were very real. David pulled out his phone slowly, angling it so anyone watching from a distance would think he was just checking messages like always. His fingers moved carefully across the screen. He opened his text messages and found his head of security, James Rodriguez. He typed, "Emergency. Do not call. Bomb in my car. Child hostage. Suspects watching from across street. Need help now. Act normal." He hit send and slipped the phone back in his pocket. Now he had to wait and pray James would understand the situation and respond correctly. David made a show of checking his briefcase, buying time. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. What if James didn't see the message in time? What if the kidnappers suspected something already? "Tommy," David said quietly, still pretending to organize things in his car. "How many men were there?" "3," Tommy whispered. 2 big guys and 1 smaller man who did most of the talking. The small one has a phone. He kept saying he'd be watching from the coffee shop across the street. He said he could see your parking spot from the window. The coffee shop. David knew exactly which one Tommy meant. It had a perfect view of the garage entrance and the executive parking level. Anyone sitting by the window could watch him clearly. David's phone buzzed in his pocket. One short vibration. A text message. He pulled it out casually. James had replied, "Copy. I see you on security cameras. 3 men in coffee shop matching description. Police en route, but coming silent. No sirens. Keep acting normal. Do not enter vehicle. I'm coming to you." 2 minutes. Relief flooded through David's body, but it was mixed with new fear. 2 minutes felt like an eternity. And what did James mean by "do not enter vehicle"? Did he expect David to just walk away and leave Tommy tied up inside with a bomb? No, absolutely not. That wasn't happening. David made a decision. He put his briefcase on the ground and reached into the back seat. keeping his movements slow and natural. To anyone watching from a distance, it would look like he was retrieving something he'd left in the back. "Tommy, I'm going to cut the tape on your hands," David whispered. "But you have to stay in the same position. Don't move once you're free. Do you understand?" Tommy nodded, his eyes showing a flicker of hope for the first time. David pulled out his car keys. Attached to the keychain was a small pocket knife he used for opening packages. His father had given it to him 20 years ago, and David carried it everywhere. He'd never imagined it would be used to save a child's life. Working carefully, David reached down and began sawing at the duct tape around Tommy's wrists. The knife was sharp, and within seconds, the tape split. Tommy's hands came free, but the boy kept them behind his back exactly as they'd been, following David's instructions perfectly. "Good job," David whispered. "Now stay exactly like that. Help is coming." The sound of footsteps echoed through the parking garage, multiple people approaching fast. David's whole body tensed. Was it James? Or was it the kidnappers, realizing their plan was falling apart? David stood up slowly and turned around. 3 men in dark clothes were walking directly toward him from the stairwell. None of them were James, and all 3 had their hands in their jacket pockets, clearly gripping something. The kidnappers had made their move. Time seemed to slow down as the 3 men walked toward David. Every footstep echoed like thunder in the concrete garage. David's muscles tensed, ready to react, but his mind screamed at him to stay calm. Any sudden movement could trigger them to detonate the bomb remotely. The smallest man, clearly the leader, spoke first. His voice was cold and measured. "Mr. Chun, step away from the vehicle, please." David didn't move. "I don't know what you want, but there are security cameras everywhere. You won't get away with this." The man smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Those cameras will only show a tragic car accident. A faulty fuel line, perhaps. These things happen to expensive cars. Now step away, or we detonate right now with you standing next to it." David's heart raced. They had no idea Tommy was partially free. They didn't know help was coming. He needed to buy more time. "Wait," David said, raising his hands. "You want to send a message about the deal, right? If you kill me, my company just replaces me. The deal goes through anyway. But if you let me live, I can stop it. I have that power." The leader paused, considering. "You're lying." "I'm not. I'm the CEO. One phone call and I can delay everything. Give your people time to relocate. Isn't that better than murder?" Behind David, still hidden in the car, Tommy remained perfectly still. His freed hands were ready. David had whispered instructions while cutting the tape. If things went wrong, Tommy knew what to do. The leader pulled his phone from his pocket. "You have 10 seconds to step away, Mr. Chun. Then I push this button whether you're next to the car or not." Suddenly, the screeching sound of tires filled the parking garage. 2 black SUVs came racing up the ramp from opposite directions, cutting off all escape routes. Doors flew open and security personnel poured out, including James Rodriguez, followed immediately by plainclothes police officers with weapons drawn. "Nobody move," James shouted. "Hands where we can see them." The 3 kidnappers spun around, reaching for their pockets. The leader's thumb moved toward his phone screen. "Tommy, now!" David shouted. The boy burst from the car and ran as fast as his small legs could carry him, diving behind a concrete pillar 15 feet away. David threw himself in the opposite direction, rolling behind another parked car. The leader pressed the button on his phone. Nothing happened. He pressed it again and again. His face twisted with confusion and rage. James walked forward calmly, his weapon trained on the men. "Looking for this?" He held up a small black device. "We've been jamming all remote signals in this garage for the past 90 seconds. Your detonator is useless." The 3 men were tackled and restrained within seconds. Police officers swarmed the area, securing the scene. A bomb disposal unit, already on standby, rushed forward with equipment. David stood up on shaky legs and immediately looked for Tommy. The boy was peeking out from behind the concrete pillar, his face streaked with tears, but his eyes bright with relief. "You're safe now," David said, walking over and kneeling down to Tommy's level. "You're so brave. You saved both our lives." Tommy threw his small arms around David's neck and burst into tears. Real tears this time. Not tears of fear, but tears of release. "I want my mom," he sobbed. "We'll find her," David promised. "I swear we'll find her right now." James approached with a female police officer. "We already located her. Tommy's mother reported him missing from their apartment last night. She's on her way here now." The bomb disposal team worked quickly and carefully. Within 20 minutes, they'd safely removed the device from under the driver's seat. The lead technician approached David with a grim expression. "Mr. Chun, this was sophisticated. Military-grade explosives. If you'd sat in that seat and turned the key, the entire vehicle would have been vaporized. The parking garage might have partially collapsed." David felt his knees go weak. How close had they come to death? 15 minutes later, a woman came running into the parking garage, escorted by police. "Tommy, Tommy!" "Mom!" The boy broke free and ran into her arms. They collapsed together on the concrete floor, holding each other and crying. David watched them, feeling emotions he couldn't quite name: relief, gratitude, a strange sense that his entire life had just shifted direction. The mother looked up at him through her tears. "Thank you. Thank you for saving my son." David shook his head. "Your son saved me. He's the bravest person I've ever met." As police led the kidnappers away and news crews began gathering outside the garage, David made a decision. The business deal could wait. Everything could wait. He'd just learned what truly mattered in life, and it had nothing to do with money or success. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Cancel all my meetings today. Actually, cancel the rest of the week. I need to make sure a very brave young boy and his mother have everything they need." Sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest warnings. And sometimes a Wednesday morning in a parking garage can change your entire perspective on what matters most. Tommy looked back at David one more time before leaving with his mother. The boy smiled. A real smile. The smile of a child who'd survived the impossible. David smiled back, knowing he'd never forget this day or this remarkable little boy for the rest of his life.